which you need to focus is how we can provide the custom authentication provider. So when I say custom authentication provider, you remember this Spring Security Config last class also we were discussing HTTP, then basics, disabling the CSRF, all these things, any matcher, permit all, these all configuration you have seen properly. We also seen there was one method called configure method, and last class we have used the in memory wala. But what if someone wants to provide their own custom authentication? So you have your own very unique and different logic and by which you want to authenticate. So pretty simple, what you need to do, you have to create one class, and this class have to implement one interface called authentication provider. So this is coming from again from the Spring Security Library. You just need to implement this. Under this, you have one method called authenticate method. This authenticate method is going to give you an option where you can write your own logic from where you are going to hit it could be a JDBC, it could be a database, it could be a AWS, wherever you want to connect. The only things you need from this Spring Security authenticate method is username and the password. So once you have this username and password, you can easily write your custom logic to get authenticated this two inputs. Here, what I'm doing, again, I have created one dummy user list. This list can be easily populated from the database side. And then under the constructor, I'm adding the two user, which is a kinds of name, username, and role. Three property we have under the. So name, password, and role. So basically for authentication, you need this name, username, name and password, and you need a role for authorization. So what we are doing under this custom authentication provider is, it is giving me one instance of authentication, which is again, I told you it's an interface completely holding the implementation. So what I'm doing, I'm just validating this given username and password in my list. The piece of code which I have written here, it is in Java 8 Lambda expression way or stream API way. So I hope you know this, right? The syntax you are familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this optional interface has been introduced. It is a functional interface which is mainly used for avoiding the null pointer exception. So I'm iterating through this list with the filter method. I'm checking that whatever username I got, whatever password I got, whether it's matching with the entire list, any of the instance of user or not. If it is not present, then you can write to some custom text what you want to actually tell that this is how you want to fail that. You some sort of messages related to your authentication failure. And if it is success, then what we are doing is we are creating one another list where we have one Spring granted authority. We are asking this authenticated user, give me the role, whatever role you have passed here, it will get that role. And then after we are doing the user password authentication token method. So if you look at this method, actually this class actually, which is again provided by the Spring Security, what exactly this guy is doing, it is going to create one auth bean, I can say, and putting into the container. So how this auth bean is going to be used? Now you might be having the different services. You have some secret, request or authorization purpose. Whenever you are going to look into that, whether the login user is having what kind of role, this bean is going to be available in your container. So wherever you want, you can access this. So, and finally, I'm returning this. So authenticate method work is get the username password, authenticate it, create a authentication bean and put it into the container so that it is going to be easily worked for you. Another side, if you look at this, there is one another method called supports that also need to be overridden. And this guy is just checking that whatever class has been passed is a instance of username password authentication token. So ideally this is an interface, and the implementation of this interface is nothing but your user password authentication token. So this is one of the implementation. So making sure that whatever authentication we have provided, this supports method is always making sure that the class is a instance of the implemented method under authenticate. So this is the typical flow, and there is no change in the Spring security config rather than just passing my custom authentication provider. So here you have a in memory. You remember last class I was showing you that we have different things like in memory. Similarly, we have JDBC kinds of authentication, and this is one of the widely used one, that is custom authentication provider. I found people are having now this day their different approaches, different way of authentication, and this is how you can create your own custom authentication provider. So now what I will be doing here, I will be running this program, checking that whether this authenticate method is validating my username and password or not. So for running this purpose, we have a Hello World application, pretty simple. We have one Hello World controller where this is home page. When I will be hitting this protected, I'm expecting the authentication have to be taken care. This is for admin. So again, we have to provide the admin related stuffs, and everything has been configured here itself. You can see that whenever there is a protected URL hit, we are expecting the user must have a role called user. Whenever admin URL is hit, we are expecting that user must have a admin role. So this is how this flow would be. So pretty simple, as I told you, not lengthy configuration, no lengthy, you know, business logic. Everything has been taken care by the Spring Boot directly. So you just need to make sure that what kinds of things you want. So I'm going to hit localhost 8080. So this is hello world coming straightforward because this URL is not been authenticated. So under this configure, if you see, I'm saying if it is a home page, permit all. There is no need for authentication. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hit the protected. The moment I'm saying protected, it is asking me, give me the username and password. So whatever username password I have given here, I'm going to give same thing. Before that, give John and give, instead of secret, I'm giving a wrong username and password. Look at this. It is failed. So authentication is not taking place. But the moment I will be giving the right one, I'm expecting the response would come from authenticated one, and after authentication, whatever response you are returning from the controller for protected, this is the response you are getting. Now if I try hitting admin here, right now it is giving me the white label error page. Actually this need to be more neat and clean. So for checking the admin stuff, you have to open a new browser, because there is some sort of caching, cookies, all these things browser side also it's taking. So that is the reason whatever credential you have provided first time, somewhere it has stored into their browser cache, or somewhere, I don't know. I tried many times to make this admin also work there, but it was not working. So if you want to demonstrate this in your application, and if you're facing the same issue like me, then you please change or open the new browser in incognito mode. So here we have a admin and password as a super secret. So admin and super secret. Look at this. Hello world from admin. Now, again, if I am saying protected, it is not entertaining me. So some sort of things browser itself is doing for your session. So pretty simple, straightforward, but very much useful how to write your custom authentication provider in Spring Boot. Any question?
No, good.
Cool. So now this is the one. One more thing is there, which is very much needed, and that is nothing but how can we load the services related to our particular username. So Spring Framework, Spring Security is providing one more library called User Details Service. So the User Details Service is an interface, and it is going to retrieve the user related data. So if you look at this interface, then it is having one method called load user by username. You can easily override and customize the logic, whatever it is written. But yes, the main purpose of this interface to use in Spring Security is to load the user specific data. Okay. It is used by the DAO authentication provider to load details about the user during authentication. So idea is not hit every time your authorization provider or authentication provider method, rather than just hit once and get the all things done in that. But there is one thing you need to focus under this user detail service is uh, password encryption. So which need to be encrypted every time. But if you don't want to pass any authentic, I mean, encoder or decoder kinds of functionality, then there is some sort of no OP password encoder you have to pass. And what is the syntax for that? I will be talking about it in some time. Okay, so authentication provider is done. Now I have one custom user detail service. So look at this, how I am doing here. The first things, again, my custom class implementing the user detail service. There is one method called load user by username. So you are just going to load that, I mean, override that method. This guy is automatically going to get a username, whatever username is there in the login page. And after that, again, I'm doing some sort of validation that this user is there or not. If it is not present, simply I'm saying user not found. If it is present, then what I'm doing, I'm returning this uh, map user details, which is coming actually a method here. This method is taking user.get, and this user, if you look at, it is nothing but your user class. So I'm saying user.get method. Let me show you what exactly this get method is doing. It is just checking what user is authenticated, provide me the single username. So after getting that user instance, I'm coming to this map user details. And this is required because I told you, you need to encode your password. And how we can encode it? Spring Framework is providing you one library, which is kind of deprecated now, with default password encoder. So it was kinds of mandatory initially to have a password encoder implemented. Usually people are having their own implementation of password encoder, but if you don't want to write your own, then Spring is providing you one default encoder, that is with default password encoder. You just pass the username, just pass the password, and just pass the role. So this guy is using the builder design pattern, pass the everything, and it will be returning you the user details service. And this user details service is going to have the all details related to your login service. So this is how the flow is. Idea is load the users by username, then after encode their password, and finally make this user details beans available, whoever wants to get that user details, you know. So this is the idea behind this. So if I run this program now, by killing this instance, so I'm going to run the same hello world application, but under this Spring configuration, instead of custom, now I gonna use the user details service. This is the change you have to make in your application also. Whenever you are saying, I want to use the custom user details service related to my application. Hello world application is still same. Hello world controller is also same. So you don't need to change anything here. Let's run this and hit the same URL, which is having protected and admin. Okay, let me come here, hit this. Now I think I have to again open this. This is the problem with browser. We need to write some piece of code to protect this. See, it is still maintaining the states, even though application is killed. Yes. So this time, what I'm going to give is, I'm going to give the custom user details for the things, John and secret, same username, same password. giving some wrong password, failed, John, and secret. Click on sign in. It is working perfectly. Now Control Shift N, and here we are going to check the admin wala part. I don't know how this guy is not now working. Even though in the incognito also, it is not entertaining. So can I use some different browser? Let's see whether Internet Explorer is entertaining us or not. Yes, username and password. 1 second, Hemant. Yes. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to give the super secret wala password, and I'm expecting this should work. Hello world from admin. So this is the one which you can use with the default encoder. But sometimes if you don't want the decoder, in fact, you don't even need this decoder things. So what other approach is, you just, let me comment this guy and uncomment this. In Eclipse, I know how to comment, but how to uncomment the multi-line comment, I really don't know. You know that?
I don't ever tried.
In fact, I also never tried. So if you don't want to use the default, well, if you have a single line comment, it is just Control Shift C. Yes. So, okay, I need to do this also. Yep. So here, if you look at this, if you are using user detail service, as I told you, it's mandatory to use your encoder and decoder. But if you're not using password encoder, even not the default one, then what you need to do, you have to pass a query string, something like this. Not query string, one syntax is there. You have to pass the NOOP, that's noop, in your both the password. If you not pass this noop here, then your authentication will never work. You will be getting the exception. You want to give a try, then what I'm gonna do is I'm removing this first. Okay. And now, so I was struggling initially why this is not working, why this is not working. So later I found, and I've checked the documentation, and their documentation we are saying that you need to pass something like this. So okay, nope, it's not working now. Where to check? Can I try here? Nope, this is also not entertaining. But yeah, you can see that actually application itself is failed. Look at this, what it is saying. There is no password encoder map for the ID null. And this happened because you're not using the default encoder, and also you're not following the proper syntax, how you can avoid using that. And that syntax is you have to use the noop. So now if I run this and try running again, this is fine. Now hit this. It's entertaining. but unfortunately, yeah, it's worked. John secret. Yes. Hello world. I was protected. So understood that. What is the meaning of this? I have also given the documentation here to read more about what exactly this. You can also simply prefix no to your password in order for the delegating password encoder. Use the no password encoder to validate these passwords. Notice that no password encoder is deprecated through, as it is not a good practice to store password in the plain text. Yeah, this is the syntax you can use. So this is the user detail service, which is also very important and important concept from a Spring security point of view. So any question?
No.
Okay. So to be very frank, I never go very deep in this level in the Spring Boot security tutorial. But since you told you are quite interested to know more depth in the Spring security, all the pros and cons, all the in-out things, that is the reason I have prepared this custom authentication, user detail service, all these things for you. So the other thing is the auth 2. Let's talk about auth 2. So what is your understanding about auth 2 right now? What is auth 2? Have you ever used auth 2, Hemant?
No, no, I know that it is an authorization.
Mhm.
We use that for authorization.
Okay, okay, cool. So in the world of microservices, it becomes very popular for authorization protocol. Whenever two services are communicating with each other, we cannot write our many logic in to execute that services authorization. Rather than we want fast and uh, service like a platform, or what I can say, yes, some kinds of protocol which is going to automatically authorize the other service on the behalf of me. And now this day it's becomes very popular. So now the whatever website you will be opening, they are giving you the option like log in with Google, Facebook, GitHub, whatever it is. So how this is going to be work in Spring Boot, that is very, very interesting. So you need to look into that. So Auth2 is one of the open authorization protocol, remember, which allows accessing the resources of the resource owner by enabling the client application on HTTP service, such as Facebook, GitHub, etc. Google also. It allows sharing of resources stored on the site to another site without using their credentials, username, password, all these things. So I'm just looking where is the architecture diagram. So let's look at this architecture diagram. Then probably we can have a clear picture about this. Yes, let's try understanding this. So the moment user has login, user wanted to log in, not exactly. User access the resources using the client application. So you went for any particular ABC website and you want to access that. Yeah, client application gives you the client ID and password to log in via Google, Facebook, and Twitter, etc. So it is giving you one sort of UI, asking you, hey, you want to log in with Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. Then user is saying, yes, I want to select this. So you selected Facebook or Google, whatever. So now this client application is giving a way via this client app. You are making a request to this. Hello, Hemant.
Yeah,
You have been dropped in middle.
yeah, I lost internet.
Oh, I see. Okay, so let's come again. So this auth 2, before going to the advantage and all these stuffs, I wanted to show you the flow, how auth 2 is working. So if you look at this, look at this image, it is going to give you a fair idea what exactly Auth2 is and how it is working. So idea is whenever user want to access any ABC XYZ website, that's considered as a client app. So you want to access any client app, and this client app is going to provide you one sort of UI, giving you the options via login, Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc. User has selected any of this option, then this guy is going to directly redirect it to Facebook, Google, whatever it is there, to that particular website account. Now, request redirects the user URL authentication code. What will be doing that? Now, Facebook, Google, or whoever is there, it is directly giving you an option the user to give some sort of information. What information they are looking? User access the page located at the redirected URI, and then after you are passing your username, all these things to this client application, and client application sends auth code, client ID, and password to authorization server. Remember, this authorization server is maintained under the Facebook, Google, or whatever Auth2 provider you have selected. The only option this client app is going to give you, it's giving you a bridge to connect this particular user to this Auth2 provider server and getting their auth code validated. So now what this Google, Facebook will do, the moment client application sends auth code, client ID, and password to authorization server, which user have to give, then it is giving the authentication application return as access token. So this guy is going to give some sort of authentication token. It is something like JWT token you can consider. And finally, user logs in and access the resources of that resource owner. So whenever you are accessing this client app, you have been given the permission via this Auth2 provider. So whatever activity you are doing, it will be via this username and password. And this is how the typical flow. In more details, if you want to read about it, go through that. But yes, high level things is this one. User access a client app given a options of Auth2. You selected that, you got a URI, you given your username, password, credential, everything. And finally, this guy is going to return a authentication application one access token. Based upon that access token, the user is going to access the resources of that particular client application. So this is the flow. Now, it allows sharing of resources stored on the site to another site without using their credential. So when I say site, it is a website. Yes, and also it is providing the mechanism to share the resources between two microservices. So site might be one of the microservices. It uses username and password token instead. So it's actually uses the username and password. What is the line saying that? It uses username and password tokens instead. Yeah, okay. I think I want to say that instead of username password, it's using some sort of token, because username password is already stored in the Auth2 provider side. So it is accessing one of the token, and based upon this token, the whole flow is going to work. Now, why use Auth2? You can use Auth2 to read data from user from another application. This is the main requirement. You want to use another application data, login via different application. This is the purpose. So different another application want to share the data, but he want to be authenticated. He want to be get the authorization access token, but the idea is you don't want to give it. You are saying there is one platform where I have given my all details. You go and validate from there and get the access code access token and do authorization on the behalf of me. And everything is happening behind the scene. It supplies the authorization workflow for a web, desktop application, and mobile devices. It is a server-side web app that uses authorization code and does not interact with user credentials. Yes, I told you already. Features of Auth2. Initial version was Auth1, but it was not too much popular. And the latest one is the Auth2. So consider it is one of the protocol. So when you say protocol, there's just lots of limitations coming, lots of specification is coming. Remember, you have to fulfill that. You cannot you cannot manipulate this protocol. Any protocol is there for what purpose it is made. You have to follow their guidelines, their specification. That is the reason. Like soap, soap is a protocol. So if it is a protocol, you have to follow their way, how they are having the WSDL file, how they are having the configuration, all these things. Whereas REST is not a protocol. So people can customize this. They can tune this. They can manipulate the REST according to their requirement. Whereas auth2 is again having a straightforward guidelines, a specification. Someone want to get a auth2 authentication or authorization, they have to follow their protocol. And protocol is nothing but it is a set of instructions, and set of instruction is nothing but set of rules actually. Well, it's provide user agents flow for running clients application using a scripting language such as JavaScript. Typically, a browser is a user agent. Yes. So whenever you want to go for a auth2, you must have to give some sort of scripting language help, where browser is the one by which you are doing the auth2 kinds of things. You cannot play around auth2 in a REST directory. It have to come up from some of the scripting language. It accesses the data using token instead of their credential, as it stores data in online file system of users such as Google Docs, Drop, all these things. So irrespective of where your username and password is sitting, the only idea is to get the access token. Now you can connect to the any auth provider, Google, Dropbox, Facebook, all these things. What are the advantages? Auth2 is a very flexible protocol that relies on SSL. Remember, so SSL implementation is one of the biggest challenge in any app organization, because this is using a certificate, and this certificate is having some expiry date, and you will be keep on following with this SSL related things, certificate generation, giving a lots of documentation to your clients. And remember, uh, in fact, I have faced lots of problem with this SSL. So whenever any issue is coming with SSL, then gone. So we wanted to come out from this. We wanted to get some sort of protocol which is by default having this SSL enabled, and give me the user access token. So auth2 relies on SSL, which is used to secure cryptography industry protocol and even used to keep the data safe. Yes, so definitely SSL, how SSL is working, there is some set of handshake between the client certificate and the server certificate, and based upon that the authentication is taking place. And behind that scene there is a lots of cryptography, encoding, decoding, all these things are taking place. So steganography is there, one of the things, but cryptography is there where you are using some sort of algorithm to making secure line between client and server. It allows limited access to the user data and allows accessing the authorization token expires. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. So like this, if you are saying any client application, hey, go and get access token from this provider. So at that time, you are using this, but it might be that after some time, you don't want that application should access your data continuously. That is the reason if you go to the Facebook or Google, it is giving you an option allow. So once you say auth2 via Google, then in one of the screen will come, it will say allow. You also have the option to share the limited access of your application. In fact, you are saying one application access my Google Drive photos. So this authorization token can be misused by this client application, so that there is some sort of mechanism where you are saying expire the token after one time uses. So these things are also there. And this is the beautiful features again. So you have a better control over there. It has the ability to share the data for users without having to release personal information. Yes, that is also there, because everything is happening with the access token. It is easier to implement and provides a stronger authentication. Yeah, pretty simple. You just need to provide secret ID and client ID. That's all. And then after your application is going to be start using that. So how to get it started? We have one application. So here are the steps. If you look at this diagram which I shown you right now, why can't we copy this and put it here so that you will understand clearly. So I'm explaining this flow, how this flow is actually. So first the user access resource using the client application such as Google, Facebook, yes. Next, the client application will be providing the client ID and client password. So these all things are there. You can read through that. I have already told you how this flow is working. Now, the most important for a developer is how we can configure this auth2 in my Spring Boot application. I given you some sort of theoretical knowledge also because you should know the story and the infra behind the auth2 protocol. But how to implement it is pretty simple. Okay. So just like a Maven, there is one more building tool called Gradle. So in Maven, you have a pom.xml file, and in the Gradle project, you have a build.gradle file. Everything is going to be coming basics in the, if you go to the Spring Initializer here, I don't know whether you have worked on the Groovy Gradle or not. If you go to Spring Initializer, so by default, it is selected Maven project, but there is some sort of option for Gradle project. So I wanted to give you one sort of flavor how Gradle project is also working, where you can put dependencies and remaining all flows are same. So when you are selecting Gradle, the idea is to select Groovy, that is the relevant for Gradle project, but it's not mandatory. You can select Gradle with Java also, that is completely fine. Similarly, if you're looking for some dependencies, let's say Hibernate dependencies, Hibernate Maven. So in Maven repository also, it's not only the POM you are going to get POM related data. In fact, there is an option for Gradle also. So how you are getting Maven related dependencies in this syntax, if you select the Gradle, it is coming something like this. So that's all. Replace the pom.xml file with build.gradle, and under the dependencies, copy it from the Maven repository and keep pasting here. Remaining plugins, group ID, all these things, they are customized. And if you want to use a JUnit platform, call this method. It is a library method which you can easily use. So what idea is, you need a Spring Web definitely. One dependency I have added is auth2. So if you go here, Spring Initializer, so I always confuse in this, yeah. So auth2 client, auth2 resource server. Okay, so here if you look at this, I have taken the auth2 resource server. That's all. I don't have anything else. One more library I have taken, auth2 boot. I might be thinking this might not required, but I was facing some issues, so I have taken this. When you are working on this, try removing this and see if you are getting this, all this. Okay, so this is the dependencies part you have added to achieve the auth2 related mechanism. Now coming to the source folder. Under source, what I did is I have used the application.yaml file. It's not like that you have to mainly use YAML file. You can use still the Facebook, application.properties file. But here what I have did is I have taken YAML file for their better indentation. So only thing which you need is the access token URI and user authorization URI. These two are fixed for everyone. The things changing is for your client ID and client secret. So I'm thinking this is for Google. For let's try first for Facebook. Okay. So this is for Facebook. And this is also going to be changed. In fact, let me change all this. Okay. And then this. So now your question might be that from where to get this information, how to get all these things. So every Auth2 provider application is giving you this detail. So if you want to get started with the Facebook Auth2, then there is a Facebook developer. Go to this website, Facebook developers. And then after you need to log in it. Instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to access the already login one. So the moment you will click on the Facebook developer and if you give a login, all these things, you will be in the page like this, Facebook for developer. Then you have a My Apps. Okay. And under this My Apps, you have to click on Create App. Okay, so I have one Spring Boot security auth to this application created, new login created. And what I will suggest you, go and create one application for you. If the moment you will click on create app, it will give you the lots of options. So will manage business integration. No, this. Create workspace. What is the option I have selected? And what option I have selected? This is also given here. Okay, so if you look at this, this is for Google, this is for Facebook. So manage business integration through Graph API through the business intelligent, build connected experience. I think this is the one. Okay, you have to click on continue. Then whatever display name you want to give, whatever your account email is there, app purpose, you can select yourself or you can use client, whatever it is there, and let it be default. And you have to click on create app. The moment you will do this, this is going to be created automatically. So let me open this. So this is the one which I have created. Now under the settings, there is a basic, and under basic, you will be finding your app ID and app secret. Can you see this? So these two things you need for your application. Whatever application name you want to display, it will be automatically coming when you are clicking on that. And that is the two things I have to update inside my application one. Okay. So let me copy this app ID. So app ID is for your client ID. And this is the, okay, it's asking me to give password. Okay, so this is my client ID. Okay, so with that, I'm good to go and run this application. But code wise, how it is, look at this. So I have one mapping, that user mapping, and I'm expecting once the authorization is done from the auth2, this is going to return with the principal, and this principal is holding the all user related details. This is my application. Remember, yeah, you have to do one more annotation here, that is enable auth2 client. So it is deprecated, might be it's have some more options. I never got a chance to look into that, but yeah, some should be alternative like this. And then here is your web security configuration. So web security configuration is just like your HTTP security, having CSRF disabled, any matcher. I'm looking for index.html. So might no, okay, any matcher slash index.html, where this is sitting. Yeah, this is my index.html. So here I will be giving one option that user will be clicking on this user. Click here for Facebook login, something like this. You can give an anchor tag for click here for Google login, GitHub login, according to your requirement. It's like that. You can give many options. I have just taken one, but you can take many one. So web security configuration is just giving any message is coming with home page, just redirect to this index.html. The moment index.html is going to be clicked, then hello controller is coming in picture, and this slash user is going to be hit. And already, since you have already given the complete information related to your security auth to client. So with this information, related configuration is going to be automatically created. So you don't need to do any extra configuration. Everything is going to be internally taken care by the auth to related stuffs provided by Spring Security. So without any delay, let me run this application and see that how it is bringing the page for us. So 9090 localhost 9090, click here for Facebook login. The moment I will click on this Facebook login, yes, so these details are coming after proper authenticated from the Facebook Wala page. So if you look at this, there is some sort of filter is running. I told you the Spring Security is mainly working on the filter side, and I'm getting the principal return. This principal is holding the complete details which Facebook has provided to me. And this is role user, name is Niket, authorities, everything, token value, remote address from where this is coming, session ID. And this is highly sufficient. These informations are highly sufficient for any application to do authorization. It's giving me the client ID also, but thanks God it's not giving the, yeah, user authentication related authorities role user details is name this one, principal is this one, credential not available. So idea is pretty simple. You are able to do this, but you might be thinking that let me run this. I'm already logged in the Facebook, that's the reason I'm directly getting it. But the moment you will be reaching to the other page, and now if you click on Facebook login, the default page will be coming something like this. Now here, user have to give the credentials before proceeding further. And the moment you will give your credentials, then authentication is going to be taken place by the Facebook. And after that, it will bring you one page. It will also tell you this particular application is trying to access your account. Are you allowing them? And if you allow it, then only the further process will be going. If you reject it, then the flow will be breaking there itself. And similarly, for a Google also, you can do that. And this documentation, which I have shown you right now, having the details about how to do with the Google also. For Google, you have to create a Google Cloud account, and there you can get this all. The idea is to get a client ID and the secret code. If you have these two, then yes, you are done. So please don't misuse mine one. Yeah. So if you do something with this client and secret ID, someone is going to get my name there if you have my username and password. So this is how the things are. So understood the flow, Hemant? Any question?
No, yes, got it.
Got it, right? So it's a pretty simple one. And I think you must know if you are working on a Spring Boot and microservices related things. So only idea is to get this client ID and secret code. These all are going to be default one. This project is also available in the GitHub. You can easily download and play around with that. So getting any questions or doubt, I will be always there to help you out. Okay, next topic, JWT. So now this is the interesting stuff. JWT stands for JSON Web Token. Okay, so idea is we want to get a authentication done. Okay, so let's read out. JWT is an open standard, RFC 759 and all these things, you know, right? What is this standard meaning? So like HTML, there is one, what I can say, community called web community, and they are giving some sort of a standard. So each technology is coming under certain standard. So for security also there is some standard, and that standard name is RFC 7519. If you want to know more about this, then just go to the Google and try pasting it. You will be getting the details about it, what exactly this standard is. Okay. Okay. So it defines a compact and self-contained way of securely transmitting information between parties as a JSON object. This information can be verified and trusted because it is digitally signed. So what I can say that it is kinds of not taking it in straightforward like a SSL, but yes, it is one of the confidential way by which you are authenticating your user. So every time request is coming, you are expecting someone will be providing with some set of token, and this token is going to be validated by the server who has generated it. So you are using a different algorithm to generate that token, but remember this token is coming along with each request. So even though hacker is trying to manipulate that request, they cannot manipulate this token because this token is completely in digitally format. No one can read that. Okay, so the client will need authenticate with the server using the credential only once, and after that this token is helping them to maintain their session for a further request. So initially we were having the cookies and also, you remember. So let's talk about why we need session tracking techniques. So whenever you are logging into any website, then you are making a request, and HTTP is a stateless. What is the meaning of a stateless? Once your request is processed, you forgot whatever data you have given, no one is going to maintain their state. So what about username and password? Since HTTP is a stateless, so the one request is processed with your username and password. Next time again you request for another resource, what will be? Again you have to provide the username and password. So this is not a good user practice. What user wants? Hey, first time I given you username and password. Now till now I'm not log out. Whatever request I'm making, you need to authenticate on the behalf of me. You do some sort of mechanism. I really don't care. But yes, I given you username password. I'm a right person of your system. Then why again you are asking the username and password? So that's where the session technique tracking techniques are coming. The old and legacy project were using the URL rewriting, hidden form fields, cookies, and HTTP session. But now we have a lots of modern technology coming. So one of the token mechanism is JWT. So idea is this information can be verified, trusted because it's digitally signed, and the client will need to authenticate with the server using this credential only once. Latter part, during this time, the server validates the credential and returns the client a JSON web token. It is every time giving that token and saying, hey, I'm the same user. You don't need to ask me again username and password. For all future requests, the client can authenticate itself to the server using the JSON web token, and also does not need to send the credential like username and password every time. So this is the idea behind JWT. The algorithm is quite lengthy, so I will be navigating through the many classes, many methods and all, but I'm pretty sure you will understand the flow, how it is going to be. Now, under this, I'm using the bearer authentication. This is one of the, I can say, algorithm, I can say. Yes, it's called token authentication. HTTP authentication schema that involves securely tokens called bearer tokens. So whatever tokens I'm gonna generate under this examples, in front of each token, I have to provide the keyword called bearer. The name bearer authentication can be understood as give access to the bearer of this token. Yes, the bearer token is cryptic string. It's not actual string. It is a cryptic string, usually generated by the server in response to login request. The first time when you log in with your username and password, it is going to generate one cryptic string, which is a token actually. And every time, whenever next time client is going to make a request, server will expecting the same bearer tokens for further authentication. Client must send this token in the authentication header when making request to protected resource. Okay, so this is the idea behind this. I will be running this. First time I will be running like this, and I will be getting this token. And further call, I will be setting this into a header, and then I don't need to provide a further username and password. Okay, so try understanding first the flow. Before jumping into the code implementation, I wanted to run this. So in pom.xml file, I have just Spring Security, and this JWT is not a Spring library. So the further I have added to the JJWT. This is the particular version. So, okay, let me open my main application. Spring Boot Hello World. So run as Maven clean, run as Maven install. Yes, this is the problem. I was not able to run. So properties, Java build path, libraries, select the JDK. Currently it was running on JRE. Now let me build this. I will install. So I have a hello world controller, which is just asking me to give a slash hello, and it will be returning the hello world. Remember, since I have a Spring Security added into my pom.xml, so basic authentication will be automatically coming. So let's me open the configuration wala part, web security config. This guy is going to have all this authentication, okay? And here I'm saying the authentication provider is JWT authentication entry point, which is where, which is here, which is here. Okay, so that I've set. Whenever exception handling is there, then there might be some sort of, okay, session management is going to be taken care. Also, session creation policy is stateless. Yes, I don't want to maintain a state. Add filter before JWT request filter, and here is the user password authentication filter. So this is again a class provided by the Spring framework. Okay, I will be talking more details about this in some time, but I wanted to verify the flow. And this is the username and password. So I'm just checking that where exactly the username and password is. So it is holding, this is the class for authentication controller.java, create authentication token, get the username, get the password, and then it is going to generate a token. So I think, yeah, so here username password doesn't matter. Whatever you have from where doesn't matter. The idea is to get a token. So next token, next time you don't need to pass that username and password. Okay, hello world controller definitely need that. What is this cross origin? I will be talking about it also. This guy is JWT related comments, which is basically sending the error in case of failure or unauthorized. This is the filter, which is going to be first time automatically intercepting us. Okay, this. Okay, we are checking that. It starts with B error, yes, because we are using this some sort of this one. Okay, get username and password. We'll talk about it. This is the utility class where we are checking if this expired. If it is expired, then generate the new one. Everything's with the builder pattern. Okay, so before going to the JWT side, I also want to discuss the interceptor, because if you understand the interceptor properly, then it will be easier for you to understand the further flow. So remember, Hemant, I told you filter and AOP. So AOP is aspect-oriented programming, and filter is AOP is one of the idea coming from the filter itself. So filter is basically intercepting the all incoming request and all in outgoing responses. So consider interceptor is a standard name given to the filter in Spring Boot application. So before sending the request, I want to execute some piece of logic, and before sending the response to the client, I want to execute some piece of logic. So this is the idea behind the interceptor. It is mainly performing this high level 2 operation. For example, you can use an interceptor to add the request header before sending the request to the controller and the response header before sending the response to the client. This is the typical scenario. Many times the headers part you want to add whenever it is reaching to the controller. So let's say you are using the single sign-in kinds of stuffs. You are using the something called CSRF implementation by your own. So in that case, you want to add a specific headers before this request is going to be handled, because your controller will not found the CSRF related token. It will tell you I will not entertain this. So you need to intercept that request and add this headers. To work with interception, you need to create a at the rate of component class that supports it. It should be implement the handler interceptor interface. Okay, and we have two methods. In fact, three methods: pre-handle, which is before; post-handle, which is after; and after completion, if you have some sort of logic like cleanup kinds of things. So look at my interceptor, which I have created here. Hemant, are you getting right? It's not bouncing for you.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you. So look at this. This is the interceptor I have written. This is my product service interceptor. The idea is you can write your own class, whatever name you want to give according to your business requirement, but it should must implement handler interceptor. This is the interface provided by Spring Framework. As I told you, it is having the three methods: pre-handle, okay, so pre-handle is, again, you need to override. It is not your custom method. These are all pre, post, and after completion is your custom method. Now think about this. What is my requirement? I want to make sure that whatever request is coming for me, Hemant, 1 second, huh? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying that you have some specific requirements. So whatever request is coming to me, this method must be the get. I don't want to entertain the post method. Think like this. Somebody is trying to make a post call for your method. You want to say that this call is not for post, this is for get. So this is your simple business logic, but ideally this is not the simple one. You need to intercept and add this. But think like that. You have some pre-hook written, and based upon that logic, you want to tell your client, since this is not matched based upon my criteria, so I'm not forwarding your request further. How can we do that? This pre-handle method is having the return type as a Boolean. Look at this. So you have always the option whether you want to return true based upon your success execution of your business logic, or you are saying false. So in my case, what I will be doing that whenever I got a request, I will be saying, give me the method type, what kinds of method you hold. If it is a get, then I'm saying method name is this one, pre-handle method is calling and returning true. So the moment I return true, then only this is going to the product service controller. Otherwise, it will not. And this product service controller is simply returning the all product repo, which I have created, having the two product. Okay, something like this. So this is the idea. If somehow, if you make a call by post, then automatically this statement you will be able to see in your console, and I'm returning false. It means what? It means that this pre-handle will break your flow there itself. It will not tell this controller to entertain anymore because this is not forward the request further. So this is the idea. Okay. Similarly, post handle, the moment you are able to print, let me print one system.out here also, so you will understand. Processing the request. After this processing the request, I'm expecting when response is going back, this post handle method is going to be called. Okay. And after completion, when request and response both is completed, means user got the response back, then also you have some sort of cleanup mechanism. So you are saying once response is done, let's take a e-commerce site. What you want is the moment after successful purchase of your product, you received a payment, you want to update one particular table, which is a finance table, for a total transaction, how many transactions you made for today. So to get the overall idea or overall uh, total transaction amount. So that kind of logic you can easily do that. You cannot easily do under the post handle, because it might be that when user is seeing that response, he can take some set of different action, and then something can be reversed or rollback. So this is the idea. So demo application, I will be running it. Product.java, you have seen simply. Product service controller is there. Product interceptor, I talked about just now. And this is the configuration for whatever interceptor you have written. So interceptor are like a plug-in and plug-out. So when I say plug-in and plug-out, in the sense, let's say you want to write a interceptor for offer. So again, take an example of e-commerce. In a seasonal day, people want to give a 20% off on each purchase. And you want to select some valuable customer who is mainly purchasing the fridge or mobile accessories. For those, you want to intercept the request and want to give, hey, if you use MasterCard, I will give you 20% offer, something like this. This offer is not permanent. It can be plug in and plug out. Till now, the offer is going on. You want to run that piece of logic, like whatever logic you have written under this pre-handle or post-handle. But once offer is gone, you want to remove that. Idea is also there, do not disturb the main and core logic of your application. I cannot write a logic in the controller directly. The reason is, if offer is gone, then what I have to do? Either I have to comment that piece of code, or either I have to delete that piece of code. So never ever play with your core logic classes, core service classes. Rather than write a hook script like interceptor, piece of code is going to be here. And the moment you found it have to be applicable, then this is the controller, which is a web MVC configure adapter. You remember this interface, I mean class I have used in the Swagger also. So there I'm saying, since product service interceptor bean is automatically going to be created, why it is going to be automatically created? Because it is holding the at the rate of component. And the moment Spring framework found at the rate of component, whatever related configuration and object have to be created for this class, it is going to be automatically created. You don't need to do anything on that. Now, here, this is the add interceptor. Here I have added interceptor. Later what I found, no, this offer is gone. I don't want to add. Just comment this line. If you comment this line, then this particular interceptor is not going to work for you. And this is not only one interceptor. You can keep registering the n number of interceptors. You have one offer, you have one discount, you have some sort of authentication interceptor, you have some sort of response provider, all these things. Okay. Once again, Hemant, huh? Okay. So you understood the idea behind interceptor, Hemant? Are you clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me run this application and you will be able to see that how this is going to work. $8090. Okay, so I'm going to hit 8090. And what is the idea? Look at this. Method name is get, pre-handle is calling, post-handle method is calling, request response is completed. Because when you are hitting the home page, that is also one of the request, and by default it is a get. Yeah, so that is the reason you can see here. Yeah, it is coming. Now what I will be doing that, opening the Postman. Okay, and this is the product summary controller. This is the products. Okay, so let me copy this. So here we have products. Let's send request. I'm getting the both the product, and if you look at the console, as expected, method name is get, pre-handle method is called, processing request. Now it's went to the controller who is doing the processing. Once your controller is done and returning the result, then it is coming to the post handle methods. And once everything is done, user got a response, then you are using some sort of method called, what is that method name? After completion. Yes. Now, what I will be changing now, change the method type to a post or anything other than get. Now you're getting nothing, right? But if you look at this, we didn't found the method type get, and hence the response is not coming to you. It is simply coming to this. We didn't found the method type get. The moment this guy is returning false, pre-handle is saying stop it. Let's not move further. You know, this is the idea behind this. So you understood interceptor? So Spring security is completely built on behind this interceptor only. So filter, chain, all these things are a part of your interceptor only. The interceptor is very easy to use and it is simplified but actually it is a core concept of filter, which is a Java filter, Java servlet filter. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me proceed with now JWT. So here also, if you look at this, we have some sort of configure adapter, and this configure method is going to be work based upon some filter execution. And what is that filter? Try understanding this guy. So I'm extending this class with once per request filter. If you read about this class, it is saying filter based class that aims to guarantee a single execution per request dispatch on any servlet container. It provides a do filter internal methods with HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response arguments. So I told you that if you want to have a look on how this filter and all looks like, then you just refer my, you just go and go to my Git one. Under my Git, yeah, so you can refer this example, how this is working, how the servlet filter is all about. So if you go to this servlet filter, then in olden days, in fact, this one path demo I was using, right? It is a SRC. Go to main. Not even this. Where are you? Where are you? It's the download servlet, which is holding filter. Download servlet is there. Okay, fine. Then we have a web content, web.xml. And here I'm expecting there should be some filter. No, this is not the filter which I'm expecting. I will look into that. I think under this we have or not, I'm not very sure. This is the web.xml. Yeah, okay. Look at this. So if you look at the typical way of using filter is, this is the servlet and this is the filter. So here is saying in the filter mapping, for any request coming to this particular servlet, I want to intercept. So this is how you're gonna map it. But in Spring Boot, everything is going to be a interceptor. Well, so now, if you also look at the syntax of this filter, okay, so under the SRC, look at this filter, guys. Any filter is having the three methods. One is do filter, where exactly the logic is going to be written for your pre and post. Whatever logic is before do filter, it is pre, and whatever logic is after do filter, it is post. And then we have a init, and we also have a destroy method. So these are the three methods. Similarly, this guy is extending with one of the filter class called once per request filter, and this is the method for them, do filter internal. So the any request coming to this application will be intercepting by this do filter method. And what this guy is doing first, it is checking, hey, give me the authorization token which you holds for this header. He got a request token header. Now I'm checking that whether your request token is first not null, and if it is not null, then whether it is starting with the bearer. If it is starting with the bearer, then the algorithm starts making their checking. So I'm saying request token substring 7 means remove this bearer part, and after that take the token, whatever token you have given. I'm going to get user from the token. So I will be calling one utility class. This guy I'm saying, hey, I have this token. Can you give me the token for this user? It is going to call this get claim form token. This get play form token is saying get all claims for this token. It is going for this method. This method is going to take the secret key, all these things, get body. Now, if you go to the get body, not get body, parse claim DWS. This is not the method again. All claims for, okay, you got something, get all claims things. And you are returning this, you are returning to this, and finally you are getting the username for that user. Okay, so this is in the case if you have provided the token. Think about if your username is null. If your username is null and authentication is also saying it is not null, it means it have to provide the authentication. For this purpose, again I'm calling the JWT service load user by username. So this will be going to this class, and I'm doing some sort of, username matching. If it is matched, then generate the password in this format and return this. Now,
So normally Spring Boot application, where does it store the JWT token in production environment?
oh, this token, right?
Yeah.
No, JWT token is not going to be stored anywhere. It is going to be matched by the algorithm. Are you understanding? So you are going to pass this. It will check from their algorithm. Hey, this is the token I got. Can you match this? Is this a part of our application generator? And if it's saying yes, then it is going to be like this. So the generated token is never going to be stored, rather than your algorithm is going to verify every time which you are sending. Did you understand what I'm trying to say?
Okay, so if we give the token in the reverse, it will convert into user ID and then
Think
try
of,
to get the.
yes, it is going to map that, and it is going to validate whether this token is from our system or not. Think about the OTP service, how OTP is working. So there is some sort of algorithm, right? Whenever request is coming, it is sending you some number. And this
Right,
number,
but
when
my
you are,
question is like, see, suppose I got now I've made a login request first. Then
uh,
in response, I get the JWT token.
uh,
So I want to get some data to be shown in the UI on the home page. So for that home page, I'll make another request with the JWT token already I received.
yes,
I'll fill the token. So
yes.
in normal application, the JWT token first it will be converted into some user ID.
Hmm.
Okay, then from based on that user ID, I need to go back to database and get the data and return it. Is
Yes,
that so?
yeah. See, so the moment you got, it is calling the get user from token. So whatever token you have provided, I'm going to get that user from this token. This guy is coming here and get all claims token for this, get all claims for token. So you get a claim, and then you're applying that claim. Finally, this claim is reaching to this particular service, and this is going to return the username which is holding. Get claim for that. So this claim itself is holding that username, I believe. Let me see the flow again. So yes. So user from token, this is going to return you the username from this. So now question is, when you are saying this, get all claims for token, then it is coming to the JWT parser, passing your secret key and parse claims token and get body. So look at this. This is what I was talking. It is not storing. You are passing In fact, not in our application I'm storing. I'm not sure that whether this guy is maintaining some in-memory cache or it's using some in-memory stuffs into their library, that I don't know. But yes, from our application point of view, we are not storing anywhere. I'm just saying this parser, this is my token. Go and get the user for this, which you have stored, or you stored, or you, how you gonna validate, that is their work. So this method is not sitting anywhere in my code. Did you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Yes. So this library itself is having their internal mechanism of storing and all that I need to look into. But yes, from application point of view, we are not storing anywhere. You are just passing the secret, whatever you have put into your application properties. Yeah. And based upon that, it is going to take your token and parse this token, get the body for that. And this get body is nothing but it's your claim object, and claim object is holding internally your username. Okay. So now if username is null, then what you need to do, you have to load this user, you have to generate the token also. So I got user details and we have a JWT token here. Once we get the token validate it. Okay, so this guy is going to give the token. This guy is going to validate your token with the user details, whatever user you have, whatever JWT token is giving, whether both are same or not. If it is done, then you are returning, you are doing what? Username, password, authentication token. Okay, set details. We are sending into the request body itself with the builder design pattern. And then set authentication, username, password, authentication token. Okay, this is similar like this. And finally, we are sending the request to the particular controller. Okay, now let me bring you back again from the flow. Whenever you will make a first request, once again, okay. So whenever the first request is coming, very first request, this do filter internal is going to be called. It will say, give me the headers, which is with the key name of authorization. You got some token. This guy is knowing that first level of validation it is doing. It should be a start from the bearer. Based upon that, after removing bearer, it is taking the token. It is going to the their utility, getting the username for that particular token. Then after, if username is not null, then it have to check whether your username and the token username is same or not. If it is validated, then it is creating a username password authentication token, and your further flow will be continued with this do filter. Yeah, this is the flow. Now, under this utility, you have too much methods, generate token, all these things. But how that is going to be worked? This is for whenever you are facing some sort of unauthorization. I'm just checking that where this validate token. Oh, okay. Here is the flow. Yeah, got it. So whenever you're saying validate token, then this guy is reaching to this class. You are already passing the user details. You are already passing the token. It is fetching the username from this token and matching with the particular username, and also checking that is token expired. This is the important flow I was looking for. So it might be that you have some sort of logic written to expire this token manually, or there might be some time limit also by which it is going to be expired. In the case of expired, you have to get the date, and when it is expired, is token expired, it is going to check And finally, this method is called from here. Whenever it is expired, it is going to be called from this. Who is calling this generate token? Oh, controller itself is. Got it, got it. Okay, so controller is checking generate token method every time, because first request if you make, this guy have to return you the JWT token. And based upon that, the further request is going to be. So that is the reason when I call authenticate, it will return me the token, and that same token I will be passing for the further request. So let me run this application now and try checking whether it's working or not. Okay, so here we have 8080. Okay, so localhost 8080, and the first call which we have to make is for authenticate. So here is my controller. This is the my controller, but authenticate controller is this. Passing this. This is a get call, I believe. No, it's a post call. Do I need to pass anything in the first request? Just let me have a look. Body add JSON. Okay, so we need to pass this username and password under the body. Raw application JSON is already selected. And let me click on what is the header selected. Okay, click on send. Yep, I got this token generated. So this is the token, is your JWT token, and it is already what I want to say is cryptic string. Now whenever you will make another request like this, hello. So if I directly hit this hello, I will be getting 401 unauthorized. But for running this, what one have to do, add the header first. This is a get call, so let's try this. Yes, now go to header. Oh my god, I didn't copy that. No worry. So is this the same or what? I don't know. Okay, now changes to get. Hello. If you make, it is saying unauthorized. This time I have to add the key as authorization and value as a EJJHGCGC, something like that. Or I think this is the same. Copied it and put like this. Now send a request. What happened? Still unauthorized. Why it's so? bearer space. Oh, it's changed actually. This algorithm is changing the data. Look at this. Now you don't need to pass the username and password since you are passing the JWT token along with that. So keep on sending the request every time you are passing this token. And this token setting is going to be taken care by the whom? By the UI guys. Okay, so this is the flow. Any question you have?
I'm good.
Okay, fine. So I think let's continue the project wala part and the unit testing. I didn't discuss with you, right? How to write unit testing in Spring Boot. This is not done it. Okay. So this we can continue in the next class. By the way, tomorrow, are you guys celebrating Holi tomorrow? Celebrating Holi by any chance?
No.
Okay,
But
so
if you have celebrating, then go ahead.
yeah, so that's the request I want to have with you. We are celebrating Holi, so I think I won't be able to take a class tomorrow. So let's meet on next weekend. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Almost we are done with the development side. Though now the mostly the design patterns, microservices, strategies, all these things. So mainly theoretical part is there. The coding wise, this project implementation along with the Elasticsearch, this and config server, these are the important things I want to discuss. And then after I can see that the lots of strategy related to microservices, what I have, what your syllabus say, accordingly we will be moving. But yes, practically saying the Spring Boot side, we are almost done with after covering some of the topics. Okay.